So in this scheme of history, divine history, that we are helping to make, let us begin at the beginning. So how can you do that? Well, we'll do it just like the writer in the Bible did it. We just say in the beginning. Because when we examine that, it's not really a clear picture. If you ask someone who studied the Bible, say, when the Bible opens up, what happened in the beginning? What's the very first thing that happened? God created the heaven and earth. Now, that's not true. It says, in the beginning, God created the heaven and earth, right? Heaven and earth wasn't the first thing that happened. It said, in the beginning, God. There's the first thing. That is the first thing. Then came the heavens and the earth. And when you study the history of Islam, where do you begin? What is the birth record of said nation of Islam? Okay? Doesn't say it doesn't have a birth. Doesn't say it was not born. Says it doesn't have a birth record. There's a whole lot of folks right here in New York City don't have birth records. Born out there in the sticks somewhere, didn't get a birth certificate, didn't go to a hospital, and they got no birth record, but you here, ain't you? Can't nobody say you were not born, because they know the only way you got here is that you were born. Therefore, you were born. Record or no record. Well, then why is there not a record? Well, what is Islam? Did Islam start 1,400 years ago, as some of the Arabs refer to Prophet Muhammad as the holy founder, as if he founded a new religion? The Holy Quran does not say that. The Holy Quran says that the religion that Muhammad brought was the same religion that Abraham, Jacob, Jesus, Moses, and all the rest of the prophets had. But why is it that before then, none of them ever named a religion? Abraham never named a religion. Read his history. He never named a religion. Moses never named a religion. Jesus never named a religion. Only Muhammad. When Allah revealed to him that he had perfected the religion for us, only then did he name it. But the Honorable Elijah Muhammad says you don't trace a religion by its name or by using a calendar. You do it by how old is its precepts. How old are the concepts? Islam means entire submission to the will of God. When did submission to the will of God start? When did anything start submitting to the will of God? The Honorable Elijah Muhammad again says, Islam is as old as God himself, and God is the author of it. So when God started, Islam started. Because when God started, he started submitting to his own will, to no other will but his own. Say, God submitting to anything? Yes. If he makes a law, he got to be the first law keeper. That's the difference between God and the devil. The devil sets up laws and then he purposely breaks them because he has the right to, because he's the maker of the law. That's why you see police cars running red lights and they ain't going nowhere. You know, speeding down the street. You know, if it's dangerous for me to go 50 in a 20-mile zone, then it's dangerous for him to go 50 in a 20-mile zone. Because he got lights on his car, that don't make it no less dangerous. He can still kill somebody. In fact, they have several times just in the last year here in New York City. Okay? But that's the difference. But when God makes a law, he does not break that law. He is the example. All right. So then, what is the birth record then of God? Can't do it. How long ago was that God created himself? Can't tell. Why can't you tell? Secret? No, don't know. Why don't you know? Because he didn't know. See, you and I come from good stock. When you find some of us who don't know exactly how old we are, that's good. The Creator didn't know exactly how old he was either. Why? The Honorable Elijah Muhammad said that because when he started the motion to create himself, that set time. Time is motion. time is nothing but a measure of motion. Every way you measure time, you're measuring the motion of something, the earth, the sun, stars, and so forth. So all time is nothing but a measure of motion. So he set time into play from the beginning. But there was some time elapsed before he set up a mechanism to measure time. And once he set up the mechanism to measure time, he could not measure it backwards because there was no mechanism before then. So he could only begin then, and so therefore time began then. This is why the Honorable Elijah Muhammad says that yes, the black man had a beginning, but it was so long ago that time itself has erased it. Time erased. When? Because there was no mechanism to time it until God set it up. Therefore, everything that happened before then, it happened, but you can't measure how long. You don't know whether it was an hour, a day, or 50 trillion years, because there was no way to measure it up until he set up the measure. That's why we don't have a birth record. Our record only goes back to the beginning of time, and we existed before the beginning of time. They moved down into the jungles of East Asia to conquer the jungles and the wild beasts, because the people who would be required in this day would have to be a unique people, and there was not another people on earth that had dared go down in that jungle messing with those wild beasts and trying to live off the land, because it was hard. You couldn't go in there and come out the same way. When you and I went in there, all our features changed. We didn't look like any other people on earth, and right today we don't look like any other people on earth. It changed our facial structure, changed our body structure, changed our hair. Look at our hair. And the sign that our hair wasn't always all these different textures, look at our eyebrows. See? Eyebrows still straight. Don't care how kinky your hair is, your eyebrows stay straight. Sign of the original status of your hair. But going down there, eating what we ate, living like we lived, out in the weather and everything, changed the texture of our skin even. It was necessary. All this was the history of Islam. Once it moved, he moved his whole family down into the jungles. They wrote us right on out of the books. That's why when you go to Arabia today, or any of the Arab countries, never find a Shabazz. No Shabazz. He took us right on out. We forget him. You know, just leave him alone. Now, 6,000 years ago, our yearning finally produced one from within us who had the nature to bring all of this high technology into being. Why? Because it's costly, it's dangerous, it endangers human life, all of that. You had to have somebody with a mentality that put other things above human life, and you and I do not have that mentality. You and I respect the divinity of human beings too much to place something above the lives of people. Therefore, we had to produce somebody who didn't have the love of people that we have, somebody who was heartless, somebody with a nature so cold they would wipe out whole cities just to discover one little interesting thing to make a toy for their children to play with. We had to make a cold-blooded devil. So that happened. But remember, we didn't create him just for wickedness. We created him to accelerate some things that will still be here when he's gone. See, we're not talking about, get all the white folks away from here. We're going to throw away their television set. What the hell are we going to waste that for? All you have to do is take the filth off. That's a good box. That's a heck of a communication system. Throw away their telephone and them bad jets. Go back to going across on a camel. I don't dig no camels myself. No way in the world you get me riding on one of them humps and getting all so old and stiff as I am. No, baby, give me a 797 if they ever get to that. That's what we brought him here for. That would be a waste. We will have suffered all this time, all of this blood and sweat, tears and lives lost for nothing if all of the good that we extracted from this Caucasian, that we flush it, what they say, throw out the baby with the bathwater. That's crazy. No, we got the goodie out of him. Now let's deal with him and keep the goodie. Okay? See, this is maturity. We understand that God don't waste nothing. We beginning to mature. See? Why he put these old evil white folks here? It wasn't just for the evil. It was for some other things. But he couldn't get the other things without the evil. So he had to prepare a people. This man has so corrupted the rest of the earth. There is nobody on earth today outside of you and me who can overcome what this Caucasian has put in their minds and come into the rulership. None. None. Do you hear me? The scientists in Mecca are not qualified to rule. They cannot become qualified. They don't even have the capacity to be trained to rule behind this Caucasian. It took a special people, and it took 50,000 years to get them ready. And there's no other people got our qualifications. There's no other people got the history in Africa, and no other people got the history in America. And there's no other people that can take over the rulership of this planet. Nobody else can handle it. And you see that wino out there stumbling? You see that junkie leaning? Ain't nobody on earth bad in here. You understand that? He can do something the baddest scholars on earth can't handle. Okay? That's who we're dealing with. When we deal with each other, that's who we're dealing with. When we call each other God, and you find the 5%ers especially like to say that, that's not just a saying. We absolutely are gods. This Caucasian absolutely has taken over the world and is the God of it. And in the crux is their real God, the God of them, the Jews. And in the crux of them is a little select circle of about 300 of them. That's the absolute power. No prophets, no messengers, no warners, no mujahid can deal with a God. It takes a God to deal with a God. And there's nobody else on earth that can be developed into God but us. Nobody else has the basic qualifications to build on but us. You can't make a God out of nothing else on this planet. I'm emphasizing that, because we need to keep that deep in our minds at all times. No matter what happens, no matter what comes on us, no matter what opinion we have of each other and all of that, just remember, this is the God. And there's no other source from now on, forever. Nowhere else is God coming from but from out of you. Nowhere else. Ain't no other God, ain't none coming out of the Chinese, none coming out of the Japanese, ain't none coming out of the Sudan, ain't no God never coming from nobody but you. Okay?
Yes, sir.
Now, we can blow it if we want to as individuals, but we can't blow it as a nation.
Yes,
it's impossible. It's already in motion.
Yes,
somebody gonna make it, as the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said. Since somebody gonna do it, why don't you do it?
Yeah.
Some of us gonna do it. So let's try to make it us instead of somebody else. Okay. So now here we are, the people destined to rule, who have sunk down to the lowest depths of any people. That's part of what qualified us to rule. You can never, ever, in all the annals of history, find anybody that was as degraded as we were. I don't care what them jive Jews say about the Holocaust. Nobody. When you think about somebody who was stripped totally of all knowledge of themselves, you just don't find that. I mean, somebody who not only can't say their name, can't speak their language, don't even know what it is. Don't even know what it used to be. Don't have no idea. I mean, cut off completely. Nobody else has this ever happened to. But this is one of the things that qualifies us. Everybody else has always had a little link to their past. They've always got something they can go back and really trace their roots. Not us. Despite that stuff that Alex Haley did, a lot of that junk is fictitious. Where the hell a nigga today trace himself all the way back to Africa? No way. Can't be done. He's mixed up with too many things and too many people. Understand? But everybody else can do that. But we can't do it. Okay. Then what is the science in that? Science is very simple. If I take a tennis ball and I bounce it, I drop it right here on this rostrum, it will bounce up so high. I can take the same ball and drop it on the floor and it will bounce higher. The further down it goes, the higher it has the capacity to rise. Since nobody has ever been down as low as us, nobody has the capacity to rise as high as us. Okay? So now, everything has to be done by a mechanism. Ain't no spook God, and ain't no spookism. Everything is done by a method that you can understand. Thank you very much. That you can understand and explain. Okay? We didn't make these people for them to crawl around in no caves for 6,000 years. We made them to learn something from them. Learn of good and evil. You know, we got to do something. So the Honorable Elijah Muhammad says, so we set them Musa. So they rose up. They began to develop their systems, their religious system, which is the foundation of it all. Foundation of it all was the challenge. You know, well, if you got a God, where is he? Come you don't never see him. You know? So then they start believing, they start putting out the spook God thing. God is a spook, he's a spirit. He ain't nothing. Well, once you determine that, that means, hey, he ain't nothing, I must be the God then. Okay? So here come white folks. They got their thing together. So they made a little move, and then they got locked up into their own European caves again. Only this time they were a little more sophisticated. They didn't forget their stuff. They stayed there. You know, they tried to spread out, but a man named Muhammad rose up, shut them up, roped them in. Then finally, after his influence waned, not just by accident, but because of his followers, who began to corrupt his teaching. His teaching, again, could have held the Caucasians captive forever. They would never have been able to break out of the bonds of Europe and begin to colonize the world. They would never have been able to do it if his followers had held fast to exactly what he taught. But when his followers deviated from that which he taught, they became weak. And as they became weak, they began to be defeated. And when they began to be defeated, then the Caucasians began to dominate the world. There was a time when the Muslims used to charge white folks to sail the 7 seas. Now, you know, God owns the seas. Then who can charge? God. That's right, right over there where Gaddafi is now. You could not sail by that port till you stopped and paid your tax. Otherwise, they take your ship. Might put you in slavery. You didn't pass by there till you paid your dues. You pay your toll. That's right. That's the way it was. And it could have remained that way, except for the corruption of the Muslims. You see, when the Muslims went over to conquer Europe, they were fireballs. They hit Europe like a swarm of locusts. Nothing could stand before them. And all that the Caucasians could do in southern France and southern Italy and southern Spain was retreat. And they would try and they would burn down their fields and burn down their houses. That's where the scorched earth policy originated. Scorch the earth so they won't have nothing to live on. But when you study European history, you'll find that their greatest hero is a man named Charles Martel. who stopped, as they called it, the Moorish invasion. How did he stop it? Did he amass superior weapons, superior arms, superior manpower? No. Charles Martel studied the Muslims. And he told the Christians, he said, do not scorch your fields. He said, when you leave your cities, he said, you can't stop them now because they are filled with religious zeal. That's his exact words. They are filled with religious zeal. Nothing can stop them now. The only way to stop them is to diminish their religious zeal. So Charles Martel told them this. He said, now, when you retreat from your cities, do not burn your fields. Do not take your gold. Leave your gold. Do not leave some of your women. Okay? And then desert it and let the Muslims come in and take over the rich grain fields, take over the money, and take over the white woman. He said, and when they begin to amass wealth and to become corrupt, they will begin arguing over the leadership. They followed Martel's plan. By the time they got almost to Vienna, Austria, there they were, sitting up, locked arm in arm with their white girls, rich and greasy, and arguing about who's the boss. It's when Martel moved on them and wiped them out. Wiped them out. Killed them, ran them back into the sea, did everything to them. Totally wiped them out because of their corruption. Because they did not stick to the tenets of their leader. Now I'm getting at something. The Caucasian going into the caves, having to be pulled out. Now, the way they broke loose, but even after they got them out of Europe, they still couldn't sally forth. They say, well, look, ain't no sense in us going down here trying to take over Africa and all down there. That's out. Them niggas too bad. You know, we got them off of European soil, but we better not go down there messing with them. We tried that for 300 years and got wiped out. See, we need to find some place where they ain't. Okay?